Hi, glad to see you on my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It's important to me. Have a good view. It was easier to land on Guadalcanal than to hold it. The outcome of the struggle for the island depended on the delivery of reinforcements and supplies, and the possibility of this, in turn, provided air superiority. Therefore, since mid-August 1942, both sides concentrated sea and air forces around the eastern Solomon Islands, preparing for a large aircraft carrier battle, the third in the history of the war in the Pacific. The first clash occurred on the night of August 21, 22, when the third American convoy with reinforcements, two fast transports escorted by destroyers, Blue, Henley, and Helm, approached Guadalcanal. At about 4 o'clock, when in the vanguard, Blue was torpedoed destroyer Kawakaze from the squadron Tanaka, sent for reconnaissance. The American ship was hit by one torpedo. By evening, it managed to tow it to Tulagi, but there it still sank. By this time, Vice Admiral Frank Fletcher's 61st Task Force was 100 miles south of Guadalcanal. It had turned back east in the morning, rounded San Cristobal Island, and turned sharply north-northwest in the evening. Fletcher's ships were now moving virtually toward Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo's carrier strike force, which was sailing from Truk to the south-southeast, keeping east of the Solomon Islands line. Actions of August 23rd. On the morning of August 23rd, the main Japanese formation was 400 miles exactly north of Guadalcanal, moving south-southeast. Rear Admiral Raizo Tanaka's escort formation with transports and Vice Admiral Mikawa's close-cover cruiser formation covering it were proceeding 80 miles southwest, keeping a course for Guadalcanal. Both commanders were cautious, waiting for the results of reconnaissance. At 6 a.m., Fletcher decided that got too far north and ordered to turn to reverse course. The Americans were the first to discover the enemy. At 9:50 Espiritu Santo time, 7:50 Tokyo time, reconnaissance Catalina from the Santa Cruz Islands found in 250 miles north of Guadalcanal convoy of 4 transports accompanied by 2 cruisers and 3 destroyers, heading south at a speed of 17 knots. A concerned Tanaka requested air cover from Nagumo. However, Yamamoto ordered to keep the Shokaku and Zuikaku air groups in readiness to attack enemy carriers, so Tanaka was promised that the cover would not be until afternoon on August 24th, if the enemy did not appear by then. Expecting him, Tanaka preferred to linger in the area east of the Lord Howe Islands. Having received information about the enemy, Fletcher ordered his aircraft carriers again turn northward. From the Enterprise were raised 8 aircraft with the order to search for the enemy in the sector from 345 degrees to 45 degrees at a distance of 180 miles. Naturally, they found no one. Nagumo's ships were much farther away, and Tanaka's compound was moving west of this sector. Apparently, Fletcher felt that the transports should be behind, not ahead of the main force. Despite the failure of aerial reconnaissance, the commander of the 61st Task Force ordered Saratoga to attack the previously detected group of transports. At 2:45 p.m., 31 dive bombers with 454 kg bombs and 6 torpedo bombers took off from the carrier. It seemed that Yamamoto's plan worked. The Americans swallowed the connection bait while not noticing the main Japanese forces. But from the Japanese ships also spotted Catalina. Realizing that he was detected, about 13 hours Tanaka turned back. In addition, the weather began to deteriorate, and visibility over the sea deteriorated. Saratoga planes, not having received a message about the enemy's change of course, could not find him. They eventually landed at Guadalcanal and returned to the carrier in the morning. Fletcher continued the search. At 14:50, he sent a group of planes from the Enterprise to scout, and at 16:45 on his order was sent another 23 planes from Guadalcanal, but they also did not find anyone. Around 5 p.m., the American Admiral received word that according to base air reconnaissance, the Japanese fleet was still on Truk. Tension eased, and at 18:30, Fletcher ordered a group of Wasps to be sent south for refueling. This move reduced American forces by 1 aircraft carrier with 83 planes, 2 heavy cruisers, and 7 destroyers. Thus, taking Guadalcanal into account, the Americans were left with 183 fighting machines, 79 Dauntless dive bombers, 29 TBF-1 Avenger torpedo bombers, 70 Wildcat fighters, and 5 Airacobras. Fletcher had slightly fewer fighters, but 108 strike aircraft against 99 Japanese. In addition, New Caledonia had 30 heavy flying fortresses. If not for the wrong decision to send WASP, the events of the next day could have gone very differently. However, Japanese scouts that day also failed to find the enemy. However, this only increased Nagumo's caution. At 18 hours, he also turned his connection and lay on a reverse course. The morning of August 24th, Catalinas detects the enemy. Thus, by the evening of August 23rd, the opposing squadrons were again separated, but not far apart, as Nagumo reduced speed, and Fletcher turned north again during the night. At dawn on August 24th, Nagumo also turned south, taking a course of 150 degrees and increasing speed to 20 knots. Before this, at 1:45 Tokyo time, i.e. 3:45 Tokyo time, the time adopted by Fletcher's connection, from the aircraft carriers, separated Mobile Group Vice Admiral Teiichi Hara, aircraft carrier Ryujo, accompanied by the heavy cruiser Tone and 2 destroyers, Amatsukaze and Tokitsukaze. Moving ahead of the main force, she was to provide cover for the Tanaka convoy and strike at Guadalcanal. But it's hard to escape the thought that Nagumo had released another decoy to meet the enemy. At 4:15 Tokyo time, Nagumo raised 19 torpedo carriers from the Shokaku and Zuikaku and 7 seaplanes from Admiral Kondo's heavy cruisers for reconnaissance. At the same time, he ordered to prepare dive bombers for attack and keep them on standby. Torpedo carriers were to make up the second wave. By 8 a.m. on August 24th, Fletcher was east of Malaita and 35 miles south of Stewart Island. Task Force 11 Saratoga, along with the battleship North Caroline, was ahead, while Task Force 16, with the flagship Enterprise, kept 50 Cubs behind. The weather had improved markedly, but the wind was unfavorable for the Americans. It was blowing from the southeast, forcing the carriers to turn around to release and receive aircraft on a reverse course. Shortly after dawn, at 6:30 squadron time, Fletcher sent from the Enterprise 20 Dauntless to conduct reconnaissance. The search distance was now increased to 200 miles, and the sector was increased from 90 degrees to 160 degrees, 290 to 70 degrees. Again, the Americans legitimately found no one. The enemy was about 300 miles away. At 10:50, all the planes returned to the aircraft carrier. However, at 9:35, reconnaissance Catalina from the Santa Cruz Islands found north of Malaita connection of the enemy, going strictly to the south. It consisted of 1 aircraft carrier, 2 heavy cruisers, and 1 destroyer. It was Mobile Group Hara, led by the aircraft carrier Ryujo. Ryujo, attacking Guadalcanal. Meanwhile, Nagumo found himself in a difficult position. He had never been able to detect the enemy and was not at all sure of its presence, but the Japanese commander had received reports of American aerial scouts and assumed that the enemy was aware of his whereabouts. Nagumo decided to proceed according to plan and ordered an attack on the obvious target, Guadalcanal. For this purpose, at 12:20 Tokyo time, from Ryujo rose 11 aircraft, 6 torpedo carriers, B-5N2, Kate, and 5 fighters, A-6M3-0, carrying 60-kilo bombs. Half an hour later, 9 more Zeros were raised in addition to these. Only 7 fighters remained aboard the Ryujo. Sending most of the fighters to attack was a serious mistake. In addition, at about 1440 aircraft from Ryujo, heading 350 degrees, were detected in the air radar Saratoga at a distance of more than 100 miles, further demasking the Mobile Group. The Ryujo itself headed north for an hour, and at 13:30 turned west without a standing fighter patrol in the air. Only at 1:51 p.m. and 2:55 p.m. did planes lift off from it to ward off enemy scouts. The Henderson Field attack took place shortly after 15:30 Tokyo time and was unsuccessful. The Americans were alerted by radar and put all available fighters in the air. As a result, 3 Kata and 3 Zero were shot down. The American pilots lost 3 Wildcat. The airfield was not seriously damaged. At 13 hours, Nagumo ordered Vice Admiral Kondo's support group with battleships to add to the move and move the same course towards the enemy to find and attack him after dark. He himself, with both aircraft carriers, reduced speed and turned first to the right and then to the left, trying to deceive enemy scouts and do not go far south. Fletcher makes a decision. Vice Admiral Fletcher was concerned. Where were the Japanese transports and the rest of the aircraft carriers? At 12:10 p.m., he ordered the Enterprise planes to conduct another air search, this time at a range of 250 miles and in a 270-degree to 90-degree sector. At the same time, he ordered Admiral Kincaid, commander of the 11th Operations Force, on the Saratoga to prepare planes for the attack. 23 bombers were sent out on a new search, lifted off at 13:15. Without waiting for the results of the reconnaissance, at 2:45 p.m., planes were lifted from the Saratoga to attack the Japanese compound discovered in the morning, the Ryujo Group. A total of 30 bombers and 8 torpedo carriers were sent out, leaving 14 bombers, 12 torpedo carriers, and 51 fighters on both carriers to alternately support the air patrol. Remembering the Coral Sea battle, Fletcher gave the strike group no fighter cover. Meanwhile, sent at 13:15, deck scouts found all 3 groups of Japanese ships. At 14:40, they again found the group Ryujo, aircraft carrier, heavy cruiser, and 3 destroyers. It was on a bearing of 317 degrees from the American compound and was already 200 miles away. But because of atmospheric interference and poor radio culture, the message did not reach the Enterprise until 15:48. At 15 Mach at the same distance, but on a bearing of 340 degrees, finally were spotted Japanese main force, 2 large aircraft carriers, 4 heavy and 6 light cruisers, as well as at least 8 destroyers. However, because of communications problems, even this message did not reach Fletcher until about 1700 hours. Finally, at 15:10 north of Malaita Island, at a distance of 225 miles, on a bearing of 347 degrees, was detected a 3rd Japanese group. 3 heavy cruisers, 3 to 5 destroyers, and several other ships. This was Mikawa's close cover connection with transports, the report of which was received first, in a few minutes. 5 scouts were lost. 1 was shot down over the aircraft carrier Ryujo. 3 fell into the sea. Another went down on Stewart Island. Almost all pilots were saved. The rest of the planes did not have time to return before the Japanese attack. At 17:15, they received a radio order to stay in the air and stay away from the ships until the end of the battle. Some of the pilots did not accept this radiogram and found themselves in the thick of the air battle. The Japanese detect the enemy almost simultaneously with the detection of the Americans' group Ryujo. About 14 hours in Tokyo, Japanese catapult scout from the cruiser Takuma finally spotted the American aircraft carriers. It was shot down but managed to radio a report, and an overjoyed Nagumo ordered the Shokaku and Zuikaku to pick up planes. The first wave of 27 D-3A2 VAL dive bombers and 15 Zero fighters was lifted by 14:50, 12:50 Tokyo time, commanded by Captain 3rd Rank Mamoru Seki. But just at that moment, 2 American scouts appeared over the Japanese formation, attacking the Shokaku from a dive at 3:15 p.m. The Shokakus attacked from a dive. The aircraft carrier had radars, but was unable to detect the enemy in time, and the observers, because of the lift of their planes, did not notice it until the last minute. Shokaku evaded the attack to the right and gave full throttle, but one of the bombs lay only a dozen meters from the board. From the shrapnel killed 6 sailors. As a result, 5 fighters were sent in pursuit of the enemy without joining the main group, which had only 37 machines left. A little over an hour later, at 16 WO, a second wave of 27 Welsh and 9 Zeros, led by Lieutenant Takahashi Sadamu, was picked up. Now, most of the strike aircraft of both sides were in the air. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Don't forget to put a like and subscribe to the channel. It's important to me. See you soon.